My name is Margaret. I'm 68 years old, and my daughter just broke my heart in the worst way possible. My late husband's necklace, the only thing I had left of him after 45 years of marriage, was missing from my jewelry box. When I finally found the courage to ask my daughter about it, she looked me dead in the eye and said, "The necklace was sold. I needed the money for a vacation." I felt like the ground had opened up beneath me. The pain was so sharp, so immediate. I actually gasped. But what happened next? What I discovered when I called the pawn shop to get it back? It changed everything. Before we continue, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and write in the comments where you are watching from right now. I stood in my bedroom that morning, staring at the empty velvet box in my hands. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely hold it. The box sat there like an accusation, its cream satin interior holding nothing but the ghost of what should have been there. Richard's necklace. The silver chain with the compass pendant he'd worn every single day for 40 years. Gone. Downstairs, I could hear my daughter Jessica's voice cutting through the morning air. Sharp commands about breakfast. My son-in-law Brad's laughter boomed from the living room with some sports announcer yelling underneath. My granddaughter Brittany's phone conversation drifted up the stairs, complaining about being stuck here with me, about wanting to get back to her friends, about how boring her grandmother's house was. Today was Richard's birthday. 4 years since he'd passed from heart failure. 4 years since I'd watched him take his last breath in that hospital room, his hand going cold in mine. I'd planned to spend the morning alone with that necklace, the only piece of him I had left that still felt warm somehow. Instead, I faced this hollow box and the chaos of my family treating my home like their personal hotel. I pulled the drawer out completely, dumping socks onto the bed. Nothing. I got on my knees, my old knees that ache every morning, and checked under the dresser. Dust and an old receipt, that's all. My chest tightened. I felt that familiar panic rising, the same panic I'd felt in the hospital when nothing I did could stop what was coming. I moved to the closet, patting down coat pockets, checking shoe boxes on the shelf. My breathing came faster. The bathroom next. I yanked open the medicine cabinet, pulled out the drawers beneath the sink. Cotton swabs scattered across the tile floor. Where was it? Where was it? I checked impossible places. The nightstand drawer I'd already searched twice. Behind the headboard. Under the mattress. My hands shook harder now. That steady tremor of panic I hadn't felt since those last hours with Richard. 45 years of marriage. High school sweethearts. We'd built our entire lives together, and that necklace was all I'd kept close. You have to understand, I'd donated Richard's clothes after he passed, given his books to the library. His garden tools were still rusting in the shed because I couldn't bear to use them or give them away. But the necklace, I kept that in its box, safe, untouched, except on days like today when I needed to remember his face, when I needed to feel like he was still with me somehow. The inscription inside the compass read, "Forever finding our way home, M&R." I'd given it to him on our 10th anniversary. He'd never taken it off. Not once in 35 years. He wore it in the shower. He wore it to bed. He wore it the day he died. The nurses had removed it and handed it to me, still warm from his body. That warmth was the last piece of him I'd felt. I walked downstairs, each step deliberate. My legs felt like lead. In the living room, Brad sprawled across my couch, Richard's favorite couch that we'd saved up for years to buy, with his feet up on the armrest and a bag of chips balanced on his chest. He didn't even look up when I walked in, just kept his eyes glued to that television, shoving chips into his mouth. I stepped over Brittany's shopping bags clustered near the stairs, bags and bags of clothes she'd bought with money she didn't earn. I navigated around the coffee table they'd shoved 3 feet from where it belonged to accommodate Brad's sprawl. Everything in my house had been rearranged for their comfort. Nothing was where Richard and I had placed it. Jessica stood at the kitchen counter, phone in one hand, knife in the other, chopping vegetables with aggressive precision. Thunk, thunk, thunk. That sound echoed in my head. "Jessica," I said, my voice already shaking. "Have you seen?" "I'm busy, Mom." She didn't even look up, didn't stop chopping. "It's important. Richard's necklace is— Check your room. You probably forgot where you put it." The knife kept hitting the cutting board. Thunk, thunk. Each sound felt like a slap. "I did check my room," I said, working so hard to keep my voice level. "I've checked everywhere. The necklace is gone." She sighed. That particular exhale she'd perfected over the past 4 years since they'd moved in. The one that said I was an inconvenience, a burden she'd graciously agreed to shoulder. The sound made my stomach turn. "No one wants your old stuff, Mom." "It was your father's," I said, and my throat felt so tight I could barely get the words out. "The only thing I kept of his." "Then you should have been more careful with it." I stood there watching her chop celery into violent little pieces, and something in my chest went cold. Not hot anger, cold. Like the temperature dropping before a storm. "Jessica, please." I made myself say it quietly. I was begging my own daughter. "I need to know what happened to it." She finally stopped, set down the knife, turned to face me. And her eyes held no warmth at all. They hadn't in years, really, but I'd been fooling myself, hadn't I? Telling myself this was still my daughter. Richard's daughter. The little girl who used to bring us dandelions from the yard and call them sunshine flowers. "Fine," she said, and her voice was so casual, so matter-of-fact. "I sold it." The words didn't make sense at first. My brain couldn't process them. "Sold it? Golden Treasure's pawn shop over on Maple Street?" She continued, like she was telling me where she'd bought groceries. "We needed $900 for Hawaii. You said no when I asked, so I found another way." I felt the room tilt. Actually tilt. I had to grip the counter to steady myself. "You what?" I whispered. "We needed the money for Hawaii. You said no when I asked for it, so I found another way." Her voice held no apology, no recognition that she'd done anything wrong. She picked up the knife again and resumed chopping like we were discussing the weather. From the living room, Brad's voice drifted over, lazy and satisfied. "It was just sitting there, Margaret. Richard's gone. Dead people don't need jewelry." He didn't even sit up to say it. Kept his eyes on the television, scratched his stomach, reached for another handful of chips. The casual nature of it somehow made it worse than if he'd been angry or confrontational. This was just obvious to him. Of course they'd sold it. Why wouldn't they? On the stairs, Brittany laughed. That bright, empty sound of someone who finds genuine pain hilarious. "Grandma, you're being dramatic," she said, barely looking up from her phone. "It's just a necklace. Mom got us an awesome vacation." I looked at her. Really looked. 23 years old. Richard's granddaughter. She had his blue eyes, but they were empty. Completely empty. When had that happened? Or had I just been refusing to see it? "Your grandfather wore that every day for 40 years, I said quietly, my voice breaking on the last word. Brittany shrugged, already turning away, phone back to her ear. "Well, now someone else gets to wear it. Circle of life or whatever." I stood in my kitchen. My kitchen. In the house Richard and I had bought in 1982 with every penny of our savings. The house we'd filled with 45 years of memories. And I looked at these 3 people. My daughter, her husband, her daughter. They stared back with the collective expression of people waiting for an inconvenience to remove itself. The pain in my chest was unbearable. Physical pain. Like my heart was actually breaking all over again. I turned and walked to my bedroom, closed the door behind me with a soft click, sat on the edge of the bed. The empty velvet box sat on the dresser where I'd left it. I picked it up, opened it, closed it, opened it again, closed it. The mechanical motion calmed something in me, or maybe it wasn't calm. Maybe it was something else entirely, because my hands had stopped trembling. My breathing had steadied, and I felt something shift inside my chest. Not breaking, I'd broken 4 years ago when Richard died. This was different. This was a settling, a hardening, a clarity I hadn't possessed an hour ago. They'd sold Richard's necklace for a vacation. Jessica had gone into my bedroom, into my private drawer, taken the one thing I treasured above everything else, and exchanged it for spending money. And Brad and Brittany saw nothing wrong with that. Nothing at all. I stood, placed the box carefully back on the dresser, reached for my phone on the nightstand. My hand stayed steady as I opened the browser and typed pawn shops near me. I started calling. The first shop didn't have it. The woman who answered sounded bored, like I was interrupting her day. The second shop put me on hold for 6 minutes. I counted every second before telling me no. The third had closed permanently. The fourth didn't answer. I sat on my bed for each call, describing the necklace the same way every time. Silver chain, compass pendant. Inscription inside reads, "Forever finding our way home, M and R. Sterling silver with gold inlay. Bought yesterday, probably." Each time I thanked them politely and moved to the next number. Jessica's voice occasionally drifted up from downstairs, giving orders to someone. Brad's sports announcer provided a steady background rumble. I ignored it all. My focus was absolute. The sixth call went differently. "Golden Treasures Pawn, this is Helen. I'm looking for a silver necklace with a compass pendant," I said. "It was sold to you yesterday." There was a pause. Then, "Oh yes, I remember that piece. Beautiful craftsmanship, old world quality. Are you the wife?" My chest tightened. "I am. My husband passed 4 years ago. I'm very sorry for your loss." Her voice held genuine sympathy, and it almost broke me. "Ma'am, there's something you should know about that compass." I straightened. "What do you mean?" When I was examining it, the compass opened. There was a small note inside. The room tilted again. "A note? I didn't know it opened." I removed it carefully. Didn't want to damage it. It has numbers written on it. Bank something? Account numbers, maybe? 45 years of marriage. 45 years. And I'd never known the compass opened. Richard had worn it against his skin every single day, and I'd never thought to look for a clasp. Never tried to open it. Never knew there was anything to find. "Did you tell the woman who sold it?" I asked. She was already gone when I discovered it. Honestly, I'm not sure she knew the compass opened either. She seemed in a hurry. Of course she had. Jessica racing to convert my husband's jewelry into vacation money. She probably hadn't even looked at it closely, just saw silver and dollar signs. "I need to buy it back," I said. "How much?" I gave her $900. Fair value is closer to $1,400. It's sterling silver with gold inlay, and the craftsmanship is exceptional. It's clearly very old, very well made. I'll pay the $1,400. Can I get it today? Come by any time before 6. I'll hold it for you. And ma'am," she paused, "I won't resell this to anyone else. It's clearly important. It's yours." I thanked her, got the address, sat for a moment looking at the phone in my hand. Richard had hidden something in that compass. A note with bank information. What else hadn't he told me? What else had he kept secret? And why? I stood, pocketed my wallet and keys, walked downstairs. The family didn't look up as I passed through the living room. Brad's feet still claimed the couch. Brittany hunched over her phone on the love seat. Jessica, somewhere in the back of the house, probably going through more of my things to see what else she could sell. I walked out the front door into the morning sunshine. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't tell them where I was going. They wouldn't have cared anyway. The drive took 30 minutes. I programmed the address into my phone and followed the calm voice through familiar streets turned strange by purpose. Strip malls and auto shops and the occasional tree, everything spreading out flat and ordinary in every direction. Golden Treasures Pawn occupied a corner storefront between a nail salon and a tax preparation office. Bars on the windows, but clean bars. A neat sign. I parked in front and sat for a moment, hands on the steering wheel, preparing myself. Inside, the shop smelled like old leather and metal polish. Glass cases lined the walls, filled with jewelry and watches and cameras. A woman in her 50s stood behind the counter, gray hair pulled back neatly, kind eyes behind reading glasses. "Mrs. Davis?" she asked. "That's me. I'm Helen Chen." She extended her hand and I shook it. Her grip was warm, solid. "Let me get your necklace." She disappeared into a back room and returned carrying a small bundle wrapped in soft cloth. She unfolded it carefully on the counter. And there it was, Richard's necklace. The silver catching the fluorescent light, looking exactly as I remembered it looking against his collarbone every morning for 40 years. The compass was slightly tarnished, showing its age, but still beautiful, still his. "The young woman who sold it," Helen said quietly. "Early 40s. Seemed in a hurry. Didn't want to negotiate. I gave her 900 because that's fair for the weight, but I knew immediately it was worth more." She paused, watching my face. "She's your daughter?" I didn't answer that. Just pulled out my wallet and counted out $1,400 bills. My emergency fund. Money I'd been saving for real emergencies. This qualified. Helen had already prepared the paperwork. She pushed a small envelope across the counter. "The note," she said. "I put it in here for safekeeping. Thank you," I managed. My voice was barely a whisper. "Take care of it this time," she said gently. And there was no judgment in her voice, just kindness. I drove 3 blocks before I had to pull over. My hands were shaking again, emotion flooding back now that I had the necklace, now that the task was complete. I parked in a shopping center lot, my car facing the afternoon sun streaming through the windshield. The necklace felt heavier than I remembered. I held it up to the light, turning it slowly, looking for the clasp Helen had mentioned. There. So tiny I'd never noticed it before. A small indentation on the side of the compass. I pressed it with my thumbnail. The compass sprang open. Inside, rolled impossibly tight, was a piece of paper no bigger than my pinky nail. I used my fingernails to extract it, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I unrolled it carefully against my thigh. Richard's handwriting. Microscopic but unmistakable. I'd know his handwriting anywhere. First National Bank, Box 1847. I sat in my car staring at those words until the sun shifted and the windshield glare became too much. Richard had a safety deposit box at First National Bank, box number 1847, and he'd never told me. In 45 years of marriage, he'd never mentioned it. Not once. Why? What had he hidden from me? And why had he felt the need to hide it? The questions burned in my mind the entire drive home. I parked in the driveway, walked past my family, still planted in their same positions like permanent fixtures, up to my bedroom, closed the door. I stood at the window, watching the sun sink toward the horizon, the necklace clutched in one hand, the note in the other. What had Richard hidden from me? And why? That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, turning the questions over and over. The necklace rested on my chest, where Richard used to wear it. I could feel the slight weight of the silver, warm from my body heat. I wondered what other secrets he'd kept, whether I'd ever really known him at all. Morning came slowly. I showered, dressed in my good khakis and a button-down blouse, drove downtown to First National Bank's main branch on Washington Street. The building rose 10 stories, glass and steel, intimidating. I walked through the revolving door into a marble lobby that echoed with quiet conversations and clicking heels. A young woman at the information desk looked up with a professional smile. Her name tag read Lisa. "I need to access a safety deposit box," I said. "Of course. Do you have the box number and identification?" I showed her Richard's death certificate. I'd brought it, some instinct telling me I'd need it. and my driver's license and our marriage certificate. Lisa examined everything carefully. I'll need to verify your access. One moment, please. She typed information into her computer, nodding. The box was opened last, in 2018. No activity since. 6 years ago. Richard had been diagnosed with his heart condition in 2020. He'd set this up 2 years before he got sick. Before either of us knew what was coming. My husband passed in 2020, I said. He must have set this up before that. Lisa's professional mask softened slightly. I'm so sorry for your loss. You're listed as surviving spouse, so you have full access. Take all the time you need in the privacy room. I'll walk you through the process. She led me through a heavy door into a vault room. Walls of metal drawers, each with 2 keyholes. Lisa used her key and the box number to slide out a long metal container. She handed it to me. It was heavier than I expected. I'll be outside when you're finished, she said quietly, and closed the door. I sat alone, the metal box on the table in front of me, and I couldn't make myself open it. My hands rested on either side of it, feeling the cold metal. I thought about Richard 6 years ago, coming to this same room, putting something inside this box, locking it away without telling me. My husband of 39 years at that point, keeping secrets. Finally, I lifted the lid. Stacks of cash. $100 bills in envelopes, organized with rubber bands. I counted quickly, my hands shaking. $20,000. Maybe more. And underneath it all, a sealed envelope. My name, in Richard's careful handwriting. Margaret. I picked up the letter, held it against my chest with my eyes closed. He'd known. Somehow he'd known something was wrong. Known I'd need this. Known Jessica would. My hands found the envelope seal. I broke it carefully, unfolded the paper inside. 2 pages covered in Richard's handwriting. That neat, measured script I'd seen on grocery lists and birthday cards for 45 years. My dearest Margaret, it began. I started crying before I'd even read the second line. His voice came through so clearly I could almost hear it. That slight rasp he'd developed in his 50s. The way he'd pause between thoughts, choosing his words carefully. If you're reading this, I'm gone and you found what I've hidden. I saved this money over 35 years. Small amounts from each paycheck, overtime shifts, extra weekend work. You never noticed, and I'm sorry for the secrecy. But I did it because I love you, and I know what's coming. I read faster, tears streaming down my face, landing on the paper. Jessica has always been difficult. Remember when she was 28 and demanded we pay for her dream wedding? Then uninvited your sister because she couldn't give an expensive enough gift? I saw her true nature then, Margaret. The way she treats people as transactions, the way nothing is ever enough for her. The way she always wants more, no matter how much we give. I did remember. I remembered so clearly. Richard had been upset for weeks, but I'd dismissed it as normal wedding stress, mother-daughter tension. I'd made excuses for Jessica, told Richard he was being too hard on her, too judgmental, but he'd seen the truth even then. After I'm gone, she'll see you as nothing more than a resource to drain. Michael will encourage it. He's always been a user, always looking for the easy path. And Brittany learns from her parents. I'm sorry to write these things, but you need to hear them. You need to be prepared. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the paper. These savings are for you, my love. $32,000 to protect yourself when you finally see what I saw. Don't let them turn you into a victim. You're stronger than you know, even if you don't believe it yet. Richard had always believed in me more than I believed in myself. The house, the money, everything we built together, it's yours, Margaret. You worked for it just as much as I did. All those years you worked night shifts at the library while raising Jessica. All those years you sacrificed your own dreams to make sure our family had what it needed. Don't let them take it out of guilt or obligation. Don't let them make you feel like you owe them your life just because you're their mother. I had to stop reading. Had to press the letter against my chest and just breathe for a moment. He'd understood. He'd understood everything I'd been feeling, everything I'd been afraid to admit to myself. The final paragraph destroyed me. I wish I could be there to protect you, but I trust you'll know what to do when the time comes. You've always been thoughtful, methodical, careful. Use those strengths now. Don't be pushed around. Don't let anyone make you feel small or worthless. And know that I love you more than anything in this world. More than anything that ever existed or ever will exist. You were my whole heart, Margaret. Forever finding our way home. You're Richard. I sat in that small room and sobbed. Actually sobbed, my whole body shaking. For Richard, for myself, for the life we'd had together, for the validation I hadn't known I desperately needed. He'd seen everything, understood everything, and he'd prepared for this moment. He'd known that someday Jessica would push too far, take too much, and I'd need help standing up for myself. I folded the letter precisely, my librarian training taking over even through the tears, placed it in my jacket pocket over my heart. The cash stayed in the box too much to carry safely, and I wasn't sure yet what I'd do with it. But I knew I'd be back. I stood, pushed the chair in, opened the door. Lisa looked up from her desk. All finished, Mrs. Davis? Yes. Thank you for your help. You're welcome. If you need to access the box again, just call ahead. I walked through the marble lobby, my footsteps echoing. Outside, afternoon sunlight hit me like a wall, harsh and unforgiving. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, just staring through the windshield at the parking garage's concrete wall opposite me, not really seeing it. Richard, always having my back, even now, even from beyond death. Still protecting me, still loving me, still believing I could be strong. I touched the necklace under my shirt, felt the warm metal against my skin. The compass that had held his final message to me, his final gift. The drive home happened on autopilot. Traffic lights, turn signals, merging lanes. At a red light, I pressed my palm against the letter in my pocket, feeling the paper through the fabric. A horn blared behind me. The light had turned green. I drove forward, my mind processing everything I'd read. Home looked different when I pulled into the driveway. I sat in my car for a moment, watching through the front window before I got out. Jessica on the couch, feet tucked under her, phone pressed to her ear, laughing at something. Brad sprawled in my recliner, Richard's 30th anniversary gift to me. The brown leather worn to the shape of my body. Brittany at the kitchen table, bottles of nail polish scattered everywhere, cotton balls littering the surface, painting her nails bright pink. My house, my space, occupied like conquered territory. I walked inside. Nobody looked up. They never did anymore. Jessica noticed the necklace first. The chain was visible at my collar where I'd tucked it inside my shirt. Her eyes fixed on it, and her expression hardened. Is that Dad's necklace? You got it back? I touched it protectively. Yes. She stood, phone lowered. Hand it over. We sold it. That makes it ours now. You can't just take it back. The audacity of it took my breath away. I bought it back, paid $1,400 for it. Her face flushed red. With whose money? You're living on a fixed income, Mom. That's our inheritance you're wasting. Our inheritance. As if I were already dead. As if everything I owned already belonged to them. As if I didn't exist except as a future source of money. Brad pushed himself up from the recliner, moved closer. Jessica's right, Margaret. You're spending money that should go to family. It was my husband's necklace, I said, my voice shaking with anger now. Your dead husband, Brad said it casually, like commenting on the weather. You've got to move on, Margaret. Face reality. Reality? I could barely get the word out. Yeah, you're old. This house is too big for you anyway. You should sign it over now. Save everyone the trouble later. I looked at him. Really looked. Saw the calculation in his eyes. the barely concealed eagerness. He wasn't even pretending anymore. None of them were. They wanted me dead or gone so they could have everything. From the table, Brittany chimed in without looking up from her nails. Grandma, you're being selfish. Mom and Dad need security. They're taking care of you. That's what family does. Is that what this is? I asked quietly. Taking care of me? Nobody answered that. Jessica crossed her arms. Brad's jaw worked like he wanted to say more. Brittany blew on her wet nails. I walked to my bedroom and closed the door. The soft click of the latch felt final somehow. I sat on the bed, took out Richard's letter, unfolded it. Reread the final paragraph. Be strong. Live for yourself. I placed the letter carefully in my nightstand drawer. From my desk, I retrieved a yellow legal pad and pen. Sat down at the desk Richard had bought at an estate sale years ago. The surface scarred and solid and beautiful. At the top of the first page, I wrote the date. Below it, I began a list. The first item, document everything. Richard had told me to be strong, to be methodical, to use my strengths. So that's exactly what I would do. I woke before dawn the next morning. The legal pad on my nightstand was filled with notes from the previous night. I'd spent hours after the confrontation thinking, planning, writing, my librarian training coming back. Identify the problem, gather information, develop solutions, execute systematically. I dressed quietly in the dark. The house lay silent around me, my family still sleeping off their late night of television and complaining. I moved through the hallway like a ghost, each footstep deliberate and soft. In the living room, I photographed everything. Brad's belongings spread everywhere. Work boots by the door he didn't work, hadn't worked in 3 years, jacket thrown over the couch arm, remote controls scattered across the coffee table, chip bags, beer cans on the side table. My beautiful oak coffee table shoved 3 feet from where it should be to accommodate his sprawl. The bathroom next. Brittany's makeup covered every inch of counter space. Foundation bottles, lipsticks, palettes of eyeshadow, brushes standing in cups like a grotesque bouquet. I photographed it all, documenting how my home had been taken over, how my space no longer belonged to me. The guest room that I'd used for my crafts, my quilting, my sewing, my one creative outlet now served as Jessica's closet. I opened the door, saw racks of clothes, shoes lined against the wall, boxes of more shoes stacked in the corner, my sewing machine pushed into the closet, covered in dust. I photographed that too. In the kitchen, I opened the refrigerator. Every item purchased by me. I pulled the receipt from my wallet, $243 from 3 days ago, photographed the food, then the receipt beside it. The electric bill sat on the counter, $341. My name at the top, never reimbursed, never even offered. I photographed that as well. Back in my bedroom by 6:30, I transferred the photos to my laptop, created folders organized by date and category. Living room, Brad's mess. Bathroom, Brittany's takeover. Guest room, Jessica's closet. Kitchen, financial burden. This would be my SARD. Evidence. Undeniable. Documented. Irrefutable. Over the next 2 weeks, I became methodical about it. I went through my filing cabinet, pulled documents I'd kept organized for years. That was one thing Richard had always loved about me, my organizational skills. Everything labeled, everything filed, everything in its place. The house deed. Purchased $1,982. Paid off 2019, 1 year before Richard died. We'd made that final payment together, celebrated with champagne and tears of joy. My name alone on the deed now, since it had originally been my parents' house, left to me, and Richard had been added to the deed during our marriage. After his death, it reverted to my name alone. Property tax records, all current, all paid by me from my pension and Richard's life insurance. Utility bills going back 4 years. Every single one showing zero contribution from Jessica's family. 4 years of electricity, water, gas, internet, trash collection, all paid by me. Not $1 from them. I created a spreadsheet. Column headers. Date, purpose, amount, repaid. Started filling it in from my bank statements. May 2021. Car repairs for Brad, $600. Repaid, 0. August 2021. Business investment opportunity, $1,500. That business never materialized. Repaid, 0. November 2021. Emergency dental for Brittany, $2,200. Emergency that could have waited, but I'd been guilted into paying immediately. Repaid, 0. On and on. Month after month, year after year. Small loans, large loans. Just until we get back on our feet, Mom. Just until Brad finds work. Just until Brittany finishes her certification. None of it ever repaid. None of it even acknowledged after the initial ask. By the time I finished, the total at the bottom read $22,300. $22,000 I'd given them over 4 years. Money from my pension, money from Richard's life insurance, money we'd saved our entire lives so I could live comfortably after he was gone. I printed the spreadsheet, added it to my evidence folder. The folder was getting thick now, substantial, real. On March 15th, when everyone was out of the house, Jessica at her part-time job, Brad supposedly job hunting, Brittany meeting friends, I installed the camera. I'd researched the law carefully. Single-party consent for recording in my state, my house, my right to secure it. I'd found a camera system online that disguised itself as a picture frame. Ordered it with 2-day shipping. Paid with cash. I'd withdrawn from the bank so there'd be no record on my credit card for them to see. The installation took an hour. I watched a tutorial on my laptop twice, then carefully mounted the frame on the living room wall. It looked like a simple family photo, a picture of me and Richard from our 40th anniversary. But behind the glass was a wide-angle camera lens, barely visible. I tested the connection on my phone. Perfect view of the couch, the kitchen entrance, most of the main floor. I felt no guilt about this. Not a shred. This was my home, my property. They'd forfeited any expectation of privacy the moment they started plotting how to take everything from me. The recordings proved valuable quickly. By March 20th, I had hours of footage saved on my laptop. That evening, I sat at my bedroom desk, door locked, laptop open, headphones on, watching and listening. Jessica's voice came through clearly. I can't believe she spent $1,400 on that necklace. That's OUR money. That's our inheritance. Brad from the couch, not even looking up from the television. She's being selfish. Old people get like that. Obsessed with the past. Can't let go. When this house is ours, and it will be soon enough, first thing I'm doing is remodeling. Rip out all this outdated crap. This place is stuck in 1982. Jessica laughed. A cold, calculating laugh. Might not have to wait too long for that. She's what, 68? How many years does she really have left? Hopefully not many, Brad said. Actually said those words. The sooner the better, honestly. I sat there in my bedroom, headphones on, listening to my daughter and her husband discuss my death like they were discussing dinner plans. Casual. Matter of fact. Eager. I saved the clip, labeled it carefully. Evidence 3-20. Inheritance discussion. MP4. Another clip from March 23rd showed Brittany on the phone with a friend, sitting on the stairs. My grandma is such a pain, she said, examining her nails in the light. She freaked out over some old necklace. Like, calm down, lady, it's just metal. We needed Hawaii money, so Mom handled it. Honestly, I'll be glad when we inherit everything and don't have to deal with her anymore. Her laughter echoed up the staircase like glass breaking. I stared at the screen, my headphones trembling in my hands. They were mocking me. laughing about selling the only thing I had left of Richard, planning for a life without me in it. I saved the file, named it Evidence 3.23, Brittany Inheritance Comment. The sound of her laughter still rang in my head as I labeled it. That night, I sat at the kitchen table after everyone went to bed. The house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. I looked around at what had once been our dream home, mine and Richard's. Every wall, every photo, every scuff on the floor was a memory, and yet it felt like I was living in a stranger's house. I opened my notebook again. New heading, Next Steps. Under it, I wrote 3 things. Gather financial evidence. Consult a lawyer. Prepare for war. Because that's what it had become. A war for my own peace. The next morning, I started with the bank statements. Years of records, stacked neatly in the filing cabinet. I'd always kept them, it was the librarian in me. Every withdrawal, every loan, every promise Jessica had made to pay me back soon. I highlighted each one, added notes in the margins. By the end of the day, I had a 12-page document. Dates, amounts, reasons, every cent they'd taken from me. $22,300. And not one penny returned. I stared at that total, my pen frozen in midair. All that money gone, while they sat in my living room laughing, eating my food, sleeping under my roof. The rage I felt wasn't the kind that explodes. It was quiet, controlled, like lava under the surface, waiting for the right moment. Richard's words came back to me. Use your strengths. Be methodical. Be careful. So that's what I did. I spent the next week collecting proof. Photographs of every bill in my name. Screenshots of transfers Jessica had begged for in emergencies. Every overdraft fee caused by her withdrawals. Every grocery trip that ended with me paying for a cart full of their wants, not needs. And then I found it the final insult. A recent credit card statement. A $900 charge at Golden Treasure's pawn shop. In my name. Jessica hadn't just sold Richard's necklace. She'd used my card to pawn it. My hand started shaking so violently I dropped the statement. I picked it up again, smoothing the paper flat with trembling fingers. This wasn't just betrayal. This was theft. That night, I didn't sleep again. I sat in my room under the dim lamp, staring at the necklace around my neck. I remembered Richard's letter, his warning, his love, his trust in my strength, and for the first time in years, I believed him. I made an appointment the next morning with an elder law attorney. Her name was Patricia Chen. Her voice on the phone was calm, professional, reassuring. When I arrived at her office, I felt small, a widow clutching a folder like a shield. But Patricia didn't look at me with pity. She looked at me like someone preparing for battle. I placed everything on her desk. The photos, the spreadsheet, the recordings, the receipts. She studied them silently for almost 30 minutes. When she finally looked up, her expression had changed. "Mrs. Davis," she said slowly, "this is thorough, very thorough, and very serious." I nodded. "I'm tired of being treated like I don't exist." She leaned forward. "They've been living in your home rent-free for 4 years?" "Yes." "Paid nothing toward utilities?" "Nothing." "Have they ever contributed financially at all?" I shook my head. "Not once." She sat back, folded her hands, and said the words that changed everything. "Then they're tenants, not guests. You have the legal right to set terms or remove them." "Remove them?" "Eviction, if necessary." The word felt strange in my mouth. Eviction. My own daughter? My granddaughter? But the relief that washed over me was undeniable. Patricia drafted a rental agreement that same week. $1,800 a month. Half the utilities. Standard, reasonable, lawful. When I got home, I didn't say a word. I waited until Tuesday afternoon when they were all in the living room. A professional process server knocked on the door. Jessica opened it, wearing her robe. Hair a mess, phone in hand. The woman smiled politely. "Miss Thompson? You've been served?" Jessica frowned. Served with what? The woman handed her a thick envelope. Formal rental terms for your current residence? Jessica's confusion turned to fury in seconds. Mom, what the hell is this? I kept my voice calm. It's a rental agreement. You live here. You pay rent. You can't do this. This is OUR house. It's my house, I said evenly. You have 30 days to decide if you'll pay or move. Brad stood up, eyes narrowing. You've lost it, Margaret. Maybe it's time we talk about guardianship. You're not thinking straight. I met his gaze without blinking. I'm thinking clearer than I have in years. Brittany rolled her eyes. Grandma, you're being dramatic again. You love us. You wouldn't kick us out. I looked at her, my granddaughter, and realized I didn't even recognize her anymore. I loved the people you used to be, I said softly. But they're gone. I walked away before they could answer. The next morning, I went to the bank and removed Jessica's name from every account she'd ever had access to. The manager, Marcus, frowned as he typed. Good timing, Mrs. Davis. There was an attempt to withdraw funds from your account last week. By whom? He checked the log. Jessica Thompson. We denied it. I asked for printed documentation. He slid it across the desk. Evidence. More proof of betrayal. Another wound, but this one came with clarity. That night, I sat with the necklace again. Richard's letter opened beside me. He had known. He had seen this coming. He had trusted me to fight. So I did. I hired Patricia formally the next morning. Paid her retainer in full from the money Richard had hidden for me. Every step I took after that was deliberate. Every move calculated. The rental agreement deadline came and went. No payment. No apology. Only hostility. Brad began blocking my path in hallways, standing too close, smiling that mocking smile. You really think you can throw us out? I don't think, I told him quietly. I know. Then came the day he pushed me. It was small, just a shove while I was making tea, but it sent me stumbling against the counter. My side ached for days. I said nothing, but the camera caught it all. I sent the video to Patricia that same night. Her reply came within minutes. Call me now. When I did, her tone was sharp. Margaret, that's assault. Combined with the financial abuse, this is grounds for emergency eviction. I'll file in the morning. The court hearing came 2 weeks later. I wore the navy suit Richard had always loved. Jessica sat across the courtroom with Brad and Brittany beside her, my family. But strangers now. When the judge asked Patricia to present our case, she did so with quiet force. The video played first. The sound of the shove. My startled gasp. Brad's smirk. Then the financial spreadsheet. Then the medical note showing stress-induced hypertension. Then the recordings of them talking about inheritance. By the end, the courtroom was silent. Even Jessica's attorney looked pale. When the judge spoke, her voice was final. I've reviewed all evidence. The pattern of exploitation is clear. I'm granting the eviction. You have 30 days to vacate. If you're not gone, the sheriff will execute the order. Jessica's sobs filled the courtroom. Brad sat rigid, jaw clenched. Brittany looked down, biting her lip, finally silent. But I felt no joy. Only relief. Outside, Jessica grabbed my arm. Mom, please, don't do this. We'll change. We'll pay. It's too late, I said quietly. Where will we go? I don't know, but it won't be here. She glared through her tears. You're cold. No, I said softly. I'm finally warm. They left exactly 1 day before the sheriff would have come. The sound of the moving truck rumbling down the driveway was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard. The house was a wreck, scratches on the floor, holes in the walls. They'd left garbage behind, but I didn't care. It was mine again, silent, peaceful, mine. Within weeks, I sold it. I didn't want ghosts, not of them, not even of Richard. I wanted peace. The new place was small, 2 bedrooms, a senior community, safe, quiet, Paid in cash with Richard's savings and the house proceeds. My first night there, I sat on my balcony and cried. Not from grief, from freedom. I hung Richard's necklace above my bed. The compass caught the light from the lamp, glinting softly. It wasn't just a reminder of love anymore. It was proof of strength. Proof that even at 68, I could still stand up for myself. Jessica tried calling for weeks after that. I ignored every ring until I finally blocked her number. Brad tried too. Then Brittany. All blocked. When a letter arrived months later, I read at once her apology, her guilt, her excuses, and placed it in the same drawer as Richard's letter. Not to forgive, but to remind myself what survival looked like. On Richard's birthday, a year later, I sat with coffee in my quiet apartment, held the necklace in my hand, opened the compass, even though it was empty now, and whispered, "I did it, Richard. I finally did it." Tears slid down my cheeks, not from sadness, but peace, real peace. I live for myself now. I laugh with new friends. I read, I sew, I sleep without fear. And sometimes, when the sunlight hits the compass just right, I swear I can feel him smiling. I don't speak to Jessica anymore, or Brad, or Brittany. Some people call me bitter. Some say I should forgive. But I call myself free. Richard gave me the gift of clarity, even from the grave. And I honored that gift the only way I could, by choosing myself. If you're listening to my story, and you're living with people who drain you, use you, make you feel small, listen to me. You have the right to walk away. You have the right to protect yourself. You have the right to say no. It's not selfish. It's survival. So please, if my story touched you, like this video, subscribe to this channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. And if you've ever had to choose yourself over toxic family, tell me how you found the courage. Because you deserve peace, you deserve respect, and you deserve freedom. Always.